Hey guys, this is Tom Kahn with the Power Ninjas. Alright, so today we're going to be covering creating an application using the patch function in Power Apps. The primary audience for this video will be users who have used built-in forms to create their apps, but are looking to take their Power App skills to the next level. However, I'll also be demonstrating some design and functionality that even veteran developers might find useful. So, when it comes to Power Apps, there's two primary ways to enter data. Now, the first is using integrated forms with data cards. And while this is the easiest way to get started in Power Apps and create an app, it does limit what you can do with functionality and design. So I kind of view data cards as training wheels towards using the other method, which is using the patch function. So in this Power Apps channel, we'll be using a series of tutorials that rely on creating forms that rely on the patch function. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get into building, I just want to show the output for the end result of what we'll build today. So this will be a complete form for a reimbursement form for a company, where you can select an existing item, make changes, and save changes, but also create new entries. And we'll go ahead and get started with the tutorial. Okay, so we'll be using a Canvas app to create this application today. Now, in advance, I've added just a couple things. The first of which is a component to add a header to the pages. And the second of which is I've adjusted the app on start to add some colors that I'll be referencing quickly throughout the application. So I'll get started by adding that header. And then the next thing I'll do is adjust the background color of our screen using the fill property. So I'll set the color value and then reference the variable. Alright, so this will be your landing page. And typically on any form-based app, you'll have a landing page that will be a dashboard. So we'll go ahead and build that dashboard out. So I'm going to insert a container to hold that data. Just take up the majority of the screen. And I'm going to adjust the color of that. So I'll use color value, and I'll use a gray. Okay, so now that we have sort of a, overview in place, what we'll do is we'll create the data itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Data tab and then add SharePoint as a data source and connect to my site. Okay. So before I add the gallery to display the data, I'm going to just quickly add a header as well. So insert a label, adjust the text, and apply some quick formatting. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is I'll insert a gallery to connect to the data. And typically the first thing I do whenever I insert a gallery is delete all of the formatting that comes with it. So I'll go into the gallery, I'll hit the pencil icon to edit an individual row, and then I'll go ahead and insert a container within it. I'll take up the majority of the screen. And I'll adjust the background color of that as well. Okay, so now we have a container that kind of looks kind of modern in order to display each individual record. So now we have that in place. I'm going to go ahead and insert some labels to display the data. So I'll call the first one Reimbursement ID. And I'll go ahead and make that bold. And then next to it, I'll insert a value for it. So a text label. and I'll set the value to this item dot ID. Actually, before you do that, obviously you have to connect to the data source itself. So let me connect to expense reimbursements, and now that should work. Okay, so I'll add a couple more labels to kind of give you the picture of what we're attempting to do here. So I'm just going to copy both of these and paste them. And right below, I'll add the title. And just the title to this item.title. Okay. So at this point, we want to be able to click into an item and start working on the form. Now, in order to get into a form, we'll have to create a screen for a form. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this screen just to preserve some of the formatting, and then just rip out the gallery itself. Okay, so going back to our gallery, I'm going to go into an item, and we need a way to click into the item, set the item to the one that we want, and then go ahead and let us move into the form itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a rectangle. I'm going to cover the whole selection area, and then I'm going to set the transparency to be fully transparent. Okay, so that'll be the top placed above in the gallery. So when you click it, it'll do the action of clicking the rectangle itself. So I'll go to the on select of this now. And what we're going to do to start is we're going to set a variable to the item. So I'm going to say set var selected item. I'm going to set that to this item. And then upon setting that variable, we'll have it navigate to the screen, to the form screen. And we'll add a fade to that. So we'll go ahead and test that out. And now we're on the form screen. Okay, so we're going to create a pretty basic form. In some later videos in the series, we'll definitely go ahead and we'll add a lot of formatting and design elements into this. But for the purpose of this demo, just to provide functionality, we're going to build a pretty basic form. So I'm going to start by inserting a label. This will be used to contain the column name. So I'll call this one title. I'll add some formatting to this. And then below, I'll add a text input for the title value. So the important piece here is to set the default value since we're using the patch function. So I'll set the default value to var selected item, since that's the variable we set for this item, dot title. And then there we go, that's in place. The next thing we'll do is we'll add a second field. We're going to add a few different types here. The next field is going to be a date. So we'll insert a date picker, change the title to purchase date. And then for the default date here, what we're going to set it to will be in this context. So var selected item dot purchase date. We'll add a couple more fields. The next will be an expense type. This will be a drop-down value. Let's make this a little bit less wide. So I'll add a combo box. And on this one, I'll go ahead and set the items property to a couple different values. So the format for this will look like open bracket, add the first entry within quotes, and then each additional entry separated by a column, close brackets. So one unique thing about a combo box is the default selected value. We'll actually use default selected items instead of default. And because it's a combo box, we need to set this as a table rather than an individual item. So we'll set table, put value, and then we'll take var selected item dot expense type. Okay, so I'm gonna add one more field type here. It'll be a numeric value. Still use a text input. And we'll just set the default value here to var selected item dot cost. Okay, so now that I have these in place, we need to add a couple buttons. The first will be to cancel and back out to the dashboard, and the second button will be to submit. So we'll start with the button to cancel. I'll add a button, put it up in the top right corner. I'll name this cancel. What I'm gonna do is apply a little bit of formatting to this. So I'll change the fill color on this. I'll change this to white. Then I'll change the border color. I'll use one of my custom colors. And also adjust the text color. Okay. So on the action on the cancel button, what we want to do is we want to set that variable back to blank so that it's no longer set when you go back into this form. So the first action on the onSelect will be set var selected item, and we'll set that to blank. Close that out, and then we'll go ahead and navigate back to the dashboard. Okay, so our cancel button should be all set. Okay, so at this point, if you've ever worked in Power Apps and your application just quit on its own or for some reason reverted back to an old version, just know that you're not alone. So what I've done is I've gone through and recreated some of these steps that we've gone over here, and we'll pick up where we left off. So I'm going to create a new button here for the submit button. Throw it up here, apply some formatting, some text, call it submit. And then change the fill to a green color. And the border as well. Okay, so at this point, this is where kind of the magic of the patch function happens. So I'm going to go to the onSelect, and we're going to start by doing one thing first. We're going to update a local variable so that we have a loading screen and a spinner that pops up to let the users know that the item is being saved and prevents them from clicking away while that process happens. So I'm going to call this LOC loading, and I'll set that to true. At this point, we'll start building out our patch statement. Now when you patch, there's two different ways you can patch. You can either patch a brand new item, or you can update an existing item. So the form needs to know which one we're doing. And we're going to use the same form for both new items and existing items. But the way to tell, and the way for the system to know if the item exists or not, is to check if the value of the var selected item is blank or not. So if it is blank, var selected item, we're going to patch a new item. So the formula will look like this. Patch, we'll select our data source. Defaults, our data source again. Then we'll start to pass through each individual field that we're updating. So we'll start with title, and we'll set that to txt title dot text. This may look a little different. I went ahead and named these in this new version to make it a little bit easier for me to identify which ones we're associating these to. Purchase date. That'll be a date field. Date, purchase date, dot selected date. That's the format for date and time. Then we'll move on to a combo box. Expense type. And this will look in this format. For a combo box, it'll be the field name dot selected dot value. And finally, we'll update a numeric field. So cost, we'll do the value of the text input field text cost.text. Close out the curly braces and then close out the first if statement. Now we're going to run the else statement from the if is blank. This one will update an item that already exists. So the formula for that will look like this. Patch. We'll select our data source. Then we'll do a lookup. So what we're going to look up is we're going to look up the data source. Select that first, where the ID, because that field is always going to be unique, so of our selected item, dot ID is equal to ID from the data source. That will locate the item that we're trying to update. Then at this point, we can just copy the code from before because it's exactly the same. Then close it out and also close out the if statement. So it's important to keep in mind if you do update one of these fields, if you add a new field, if you change a field, that you update both the new creation and the updating an existing item together. At this point, we're going to set another local variable, and I'll show you how this gets in place in a second. So I'm going to set loc timer reset to true. We're going to run a timer to show the success message. And I'm also going to, after that's complete, run some additional commands, and I'm going to trigger those via these variables I set. So loc loading, I'm going to take that, I'm going to set that back to false now that it's completed, saving. I'm going to set loc timer reset to false since it's been reset already. And I'm going to set loc timer start to true to trigger the timer. So sometimes autocomplete doesn't totally work when I hit tab, so I'm going to go ahead and update this real quick, update context, and then we'll go ahead and build in the loading screen. So to do that, we'll go to insert, we'll insert a rectangle, and we'll change the fill. What we're going to do is we're going to make this black with half transparency. Okay, then I'm going to insert an image. This will be a loading image, and I ended up generating a custom one, and if anyone wants to use it, it's loading.io. It's pretty cool. You get to use a free loading image that you can kind of generate with your company's brand and colors. So I'll select that. It's already uploaded here. And it's a cool little Pac-Man loading icon. Okay, so for two of these, I'm going to group them together. And I'm going to change the visible property of these so that they only show when the item is loading. So visible, I'm going to set to LOC loading. So at the start of our formula, we set the LOC loading to true, and as soon as it completes, we set it back to false, so that this goes away at that point in time. So at this point in time, our item is saved, and it's next point of our formula, we're setting some additional local variables. The next one is going to trigger the timer to start. So let's build in that timer. Insert, timer, First thing I'll do is change the duration to 3 seconds, so that'd be 3000. And then I'll go ahead and change the on timer start. And we'll set that to update context, LOC success to true. We'll also change the start property to LOC timer start. And the last thing we'll update is on the timer end. So we'll make that update context. We'll set LOC timer start to false, LOC success to false to make the message go away, and set LOC timer reset to true so that the timer can be run again the next time. And actually, that's one more thing we'll have to go back to adjust the reset value. And then we'll bring you back to the dashboard. So we'll go to Navigate, back to screen 1 with a fade. So we'll set the reset value here. We'll set that to LOC timer reset. And we'll also make this so that it doesn't show to the user. So we'll set the visible property to false. Okay, let's test it out. We'll make a change. We'll change it from laptop to desktop. Hit submit. Runs a load icon. And then brings us back to the dashboard. And we'll see that the item's been updated. Now we're going to add one more thing here. Go back in. So what I want to add here at this point is a success message that displays for those 3 seconds while the item has been saved, and to let you know that it's been successful and pushes you back to the dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Insert. We're going to insert another one of those rectangles. I use these pretty often if you're catching on to that so far. And change that to the same color. That'll be 0.5. And at this point, I'm going to add another container to hold the success message. The default size is pretty decent for what we're trying to do here. And I'll change the color of that to white. It's probably not the best way to set a color, it's just the way that's most convenient for me. You can set it any way you'd like to. And then I'm just going to add an icon with like a check mark to show that it was successful, and then a quick friendly message to let the user know that it's been saved. So I'll add a text label. I'll just say, your item has been saved successfully. And I'll add a check icon on the side. Set the color of that. Okay. Then I'm going to, again, group these together. And I'll set the visible property on this to LOC success. Let's give that one more shot. Change it back to laptop. We're going to change a few of these values. Let's change that to the 20th. Make it travel. And make the cost different. Submit. We'll see our success message. And that will bring us back to the dashboard with our item updated. Okay, so at this point we're able to successfully edit an existing item. But what would you do if you needed to create a new item? So we're going to come back to our dashboard. We're going to enter a new button. We'll make this for a new entry. I'll change some colors. And go to the onSelect. Now for the onSelect, I'm going to set the variable back to blank, var selected item to blank. And at this point, I'm going to do navigation over back to the edit form. And let's test this out. Go to new entry. You'll see all the values are back to blank, and we'll add a new item. So we'll call this Ninja Stars. They're purchased July 2nd. Supplies, they're $40. Submit. Pac-Man comes up and it's been saved. And we can see that this is now a new entry in our database. Okay, so now that we've been able to create an app using the patch function, there's a lot of design and functionality capabilities that are open to us to meet unique technical requirements. So hopefully you enjoyed watching this video and gained some knowledge from it. And I have a lot of more content planned to show you some pretty cool things that we're doing with Power Apps. So please give me a follow, and thank you for watching.